Recording is on.
All right, so today is July 20, 2021, and it's part two with Spencer McCall. So we'll leave it off. Hugh, did you want to start it off?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, let's go back to where we finished off, and we finished off talking about, can you have a benevolent or beneficial cult leader, so benign cult leader. So I want to go over that. I also wanted to just mention, I did actually eventually find the Tucker Carlson spoof that you did, which was absolutely priceless. So I'll put a link to that in this one too. And yeah, it was just wonderful how you showed up, how so much fun. But you actually were carried seriously in the Washington Post, was it?
Yeah,
the story actually ran.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
It was a trip. Yeah, I mean, it was really the brainchild of a friend of mine who created this whole campaign around the idea that we had heard a lot before 2016, and even before the idea of crisis actors, which is just ridiculous and like totally untenable. But you also hear about like paid protesters. You'd hear that all the time, and you'd hear people like Trump claiming that there were paid protesters being bussed in. And so my friend kind of just thought, like, well, how would you actually logistically do that? How would it be possible to actually pay protesters? And sort of did the math, and he created a company called Demand Protest, and then started posting on like TaskRabbits and Craigslist all around the country, offering these exorbitant prices and travel to go to Washington, D.C. and to go protest at the inauguration of Donald Trump, but wasn't necessarily saying whether it was protesting for or against. It was just go there and make a scene. And by doing that, it immediately got tons of coverage right away. Some of it actually like purported to think that it was real. There's very little diligence done. And that was kind of on both sides of the news political spectrums. There was conservative news and liberal news, both kind of for a second running with it. And then my friend got an email from Tucker Carlson saying, we'd like to talk to you about this company. And I have a little bit of history with understanding like how those kind of feeds work. So I was in LA. Tucker Carlson, I think, is in Washington, D.C. And so I said, so my friend kind of just asked, do you want to do this? Do you want to go on? And you can say anything you want on Fox News tonight. And so just kind of knowing, all right, well, I'm pretty close to the Fox affiliate here in Santa Monica. So if they can, feed me in, then sure, I'll go do it. And really had no idea what I was going to say, but they sent like a black car and picked me up on a street corner in Santa Monica, and went down there and just kind of was like, okay, so what do I want to talk about and what do I want to do? And it kind of just, I just sort of wanted to talk about aliens and just kind of derail it and just kind of do a spectacle around how easy it actually was to get on, national primetime news. But as I kind of thought a little bit more about it, it's like, well, maybe we can actually kind of use absurdity to say something about the state of the world. And so that was kind of the idea. And then, went on and, done a little bit of improv in the past, and there's always the yes and thing. So, it's never about getting in an argument, because obviously that's what somebody like Tucker Carlson wants, is, this like panem circenses kind of thing of just like, let's just have a gladiator match. But if you kind of like used a little bit more of like intellectual jujitsu and just kind of like everything he said, yes, and we're going over in this direction, it was able to kind of, I guess, sort of break him at a certain point, and we were kind of able to understand the absurdity of the situation, and hopefully some of his viewers could understand the like absurdity of the idea of paying protesters or crisis actors. I think some people got that, and some people saw kind of what they wanted in it. But you know, that is what it is.
But there really is such a thing as you can rent crowds and stuff like that. I didn't believe it myself, but in Los Angeles, the first time I came across it was in Los Angeles in about '94, and I just happened to go to this club because I knew the band there. And the opening act was Alanis Morissette. It was the day before her album was released. Nobody had ever heard of her. And I thought she was absolutely freaking terrible. But the whole place was alive with millions of people, but there was something a little bit off. And then everybody, you know, after she'd finished her gig and went on to my friends, the whole place just cleared out. I thought, what the hell went on? And then some people explained to me, no, they just paid. They basically, all these extras, they would be in Hollywood. The same thing happened in San Francisco. I had this weird experience again and again because I worked in downtown in about 2000, 2001. And, you know, there were these guys who were kind of well-dressed. You'd get, say, a power couple, and they'd be sitting in a Starbucks. And they would start up this loud, weird conversation about some product or something. And, you know, it sounded so fake and stuff. And it happened again and again. Eventually I read in the news that, yeah, it's an advertising gimmick. They basically pay a couple of actors to go into a crowded place and start talking up this fake dialogue. So,
Right.
yeah, it does
But
actually exist. It's not all
widely in Africa and in Arab countries. They go around the poor areas with money and they to get people to cheer. And it's just, that's so common. It's just a way of making a living for people out there. You know, we go to cheer for the president, for a priest, for anything at all. And they,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose, yeah, and there's also groups
it's like
you know,
the funeral in North Korea, right? Kim Jong Un's father or something. Went there millions of these paid actors to come and cry at you.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that is the thing. My thinking at the time was it was just like kind of ridiculous to think like hundreds of thousands of people were being paid by George Soros or whoever to go and you know, create a scene. There's also the idea that, you know, I don't even want to say it because it's so stupid, but just like the idea that everybody at the January 6th riot was paid for by, you know, they're all like liberals dressed up, but, you know, it's so ridiculous. But that was kind of what we were going for. That's not to say that you can't hire large groups of people to do things. I mean, obviously, like the Olympics, the opening ceremony is, you know, 10,000 actors who, you know, do some opening show. But I don't know. I just at the time kind of thought it was like ridiculous. And
sure, the insurrection is ridiculous, but Donald Trump's elevator scene, those guys were proven to be all paid. You know, that whole. You remember when he did his debut in 2016 or so? He came down the elevator. Yeah, I mean escalator, no elevator. Yeah. And all those guys, that whole crowd, was paid for by the hour. I think that's well established now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess this all kind of comes back to my point of over the last like 4 years, my way of thinking has been, or what I've been trying to do is get people to re-engage with reality a little bit and sort of, I don't know, like, yeah, I wouldn't do what I did in 2016 now. I wouldn't necessarily try to obfuscate the truth or get people to question things, because I think at a certain point, curiosity is nice and stuff, and I think we should ask questions and be curious and stuff like that, but we should do it using, you know, the scientific method, opposed to just believing whatever it is you want to believe. So again, my thing is like, I love the idea of hoaxes and conspiracy theories and all that stuff's really, really fun. But it's fun if you kind of have the context that it's not real and you're kind of playing a game a little bit. Where, yeah, I just I feel like we need to get back to some consensus reality before we can lead people down this other path, and that's kind of been my focus the last few years.
Yeah, I think consensus reality is, part of history now. I don't think we can.
Well, yeah.
But,
I mean,
yeah.
like,
So,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, you mentioned last time, just when we were finishing off about the yes men, and the yes men said that you can actually tell the truth by telling a lie, and I've always thought that too. I thought it's kind of what theater is all about, is like, through something that's not true, you can reach a greater truth than if you just spell out the truth, don't you think? And so isn't that part of it?
I think that's part of it. Yeah. I mean, the one of the most famous yes men things was the Exxon Mobil, where they, or was it Dow Chemicals, where they agreed to pay back millions of dollars to everybody that they had affected by pretending to be the CEO of one of those companies. And in effect, all that really had to happen was, the real CEO had to come out and be like, no, we're not giving the money. And so it's like this chess, of like, we want them to basically say, no, we don't feel bad for what we've done, and to go publicly with it. So yeah, I think you can absolutely, tell a lie to get to the truth, I guess. I just don't know how to play that game right now, necessarily.
Yeah, it's true. We're in the twilight zone.
Mm-hmm.
But, so does it really matter, though? I mean, the way I see it now, I'm getting a bit nihilistic, I guess. But I think we just need change, right? Doesn't matter what it is. We shouldn't finesse it too much. We should just basically, anything that promotes instability and change is good at this point, isn't it?
I think so. I mean, a lot of the thing, though, with, like, again, I'm not trying to be political or anything like that, but I think a lot of the reason, like, Donald Trump won was the idea of, like, well, let's just shake things up. Let's just get crazy and, like, let's just see what happens. But I don't know, sometimes there's a good way to shake things up and sometimes there's a bad way to shake things up, I think.
Well, that's kind of what I'm arguing. Is there a good? Isn't it just like publicity? There's no good and bad publicity at this point. We just need a shake-up, don't we? I mean, it's the danger is business as usual, isn't it? There needs to be a change. So it's kind of like, we shouldn't be too picky. We should just go and shake things up. No matter what happens, it's got to be better than what's happening now, isn't it?
Perhaps, yeah. Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Well, isn't that the Discordian? Isn't that the Discordian way, though? It's just, you just need a bit of chaos. You just need add a touch of chaos.
Yeah, but I think that lesson was kind of, or that way of thinking was kind of appropriated by more nefarious people. So for instance, your group is trying to see how you can use the technology of Discord to get people to wake up to environmental change and climate change, but other people would want to use that technology, to deny climate change and deny it. So it's sort of like it's a tool, but it just depends on who's wielding it, I suppose. Are they doing it for good or are they doing it for bad? I like to think that, the ARG stuff that we were doing back in the day, that was for good. That was to get people to see the magic and beauty in the world and think that life is worth living and seeing, versus using the ARG of, like, QAnon to say there's a shadow cabal of, whatever, a shadow cabal of Zionists with space lasers that are in control of everything and that you're powerless. My thing with any, like, anything really is like when I'm given a bunch of information, it's like, well, what do you want me to do with this information? You know, so, all right, if there is a group of terrible, evil people hiding under the surface and they're eating the adrenochrome of children, what am I supposed to do with this information? Do you want me to go into a pizza parlor with a machine gun and look for a basement? Do you want me to, you know, I don't know. I just don't know what like the call to action is. And so establishing what that call to action is kind of a challenge as well, I think. Because there's going to be the fringe nutso people who go try to storm the Capitol or, you know, enter a pizza parlor with a machine gun. But how do you get that call to action to be something more constructive, I guess? And you know, I'm not a climate scientist, but I trust them deeply. And it's funny to me, like how the language of like climate change has had to evolve over the years. It's really stupid to me. You know, the idea that I think in the early 2000s, maybe even the late 90s, you know, we were always hearing about the hole in the ozone layer, and we don't really hear, I don't feel like we hear too much about that anymore. And I think part of that was the idea that
it was fixed.
Oh,
no, it was fixed.
It was fixed.
No, that worked. Yeah, everybody, it was based on CFCs in aerosol cans and refrigerators, you know, the coolant. But CFCs had an easy replacement. So everybody rallied all over the world, and the hole started to heal up. All the sheep who had damage to their eyes in Torre del Fuego and stuff, they got better. It was a big success story, but it's turned into a disaster because all the climate scientists said, you know, we must do that again. And the big mistake they made was the economics, because the CFC and the hole in the ozone layer had an easy fix, and it was even economic. So people switched to it. But there is no substitute for oil, and green tech and stuff isn't really a substitute. It's all, you know, it's a bit of a con game. But so because climate scientists did the same trick and said we must keep everybody positive, we must think, and then we will do this big transition. And the transition happened, but it was from like coal to LNG, liquid natural gas. It wasn't really into anything sustainable. It would reduced carbon a little bit, but the economy expanded. So it turned out that they used the wrong model. It was the wrong thing to do, to try and replicate that.
Got it. So I see this is something I didn't even know, that like the hole in the ozone layer was fixed. And I think we need to do a little bit more of that, of like, you know, singing our own praises a little bit when we do kind of tackle something and successfully try to fix it. Because there's definitely a sense, I think, of like this like hopelessness and what is it that we can possibly do? There's nothing we can do, so we might as well just ride it out until whatever happens, until we all, you know, die or whatever. But I love the idea that no, like there's stuff we could do if we invest in certain technologies. We can fix this. And I don't know. I think we should sing our own praise.
No, I don't think we can. No, I don't think we can. I think that's the big con going on, is they're trying to convince us that if we, you know, it's just a question of investing in this and that, and I don't think that holds up. I think that we have to basically scale back. We have to do degrowth. We have to like rediscover ourselves. And so it's really industrialism that's the problem. So what they're doing with all the green tech solutions is they're trying to fake us out and say, no, giving, you know, this industrial system that hardly anybody ever likes, give it a second chance. And everybody goes, yeah, let's make it, you know, solar panels and wind farms and we'll all be fine. And it's like, no, we won't. It's fantasy. They're basically that all those things will be added to the energy budget, but they're going to increase coal. They're going to increase, you know, fossil fuel usage is going to expand to 2050. The IEA is not even hiding it. It's going to expand dramatically, almost 50% increase. And so they'll just add all the green so-called renewables, they'll just add it to the energy budget, and we'll just have more energy to do more planetary destruction. So what we really need to do is to, get people off this culture of, that no one really likes it even. And so I think that the way to do it with an ARG is, okay, it's the same thing as you did with the Institute. You basically have some good guys and bad guys, even if it's really spurious. You just need a, controlled opposition, preferably, but some kind of opposition, and you need some kind of dichotomy like that just to make it work, just like theater. But then I think it's a question then of who's got the best narrative. And so if people are doing these kind of psyops like QAnon and stuff like that, that's one narrative, and it's not very appealing. It's like you say, it's all a bit dark, a bit negative, it's all a bit wacky. And adrenochrome and stuff is not, it's not very uplifting and stuff. So it's an easy narrative to beat. Then you take the green tech narrative, and then it's all like, hey, we can, well, it's the transhumanists that I think are the green tech guys. So it's all like, it's Elon Musk and Bezos and Gates and stuff, and we're all going to apply tech and live happily ever after with, all this technology is going to save us, and AI is going to be our friend, and we're all going to be cyborgs, and it's going to be wonderful, and we'll colonize Mars. And it's like, that also sucks. Unless you're an adolescent that grew up on Star Trek, I think
can I interrupt you a second there, Hugh? How are you going to make a narrative appealing for degrowth in people who will engage in an ARG, who think that technology is going to sort out everything, to their slightest little daily problems, to their health, to their phone, to everything? That is my for us. We've got narratives. We are from another generation. We know what's appealing to us. We live kind of self-sufficient, but to make a narrative appealing is going to be the big crucial thing. The planet elsewhere and the planet nowhere that you had started when you were, for us it's fine, but when we think that we're going to be talking to people who are so in love with their tech, how are we going to make it appealing?
Easy as falling off a log. Okay, Spencer, now we need your help on this one. But this is the way I see it. It's dead easy. It's the oldest narrative in the book. Is you just get people to believe that all those guys are really necromancers. They're all romancing death. That whole world, the upload to silicon, all this kind of cyber thing, it's a dead world. The virtual reality. If you go into those kind of virtual reality simulators, those full immersion ones like the Matrix, the thing that strikes me most about them is the experience is dead. It's lifeless. It's like a mausoleum. Those guys are really like Death Eaters. And it's easy to make it say that, it's bleak, it's deadly, it's not life. So it's basically easy. We're Team Life. We are trying to save life. These guys are going to create death. They're all trying to get to immortality, but I'm even reading Homo Deus now by Harari. Mm-hmm. And I just started it, but I think he's going to the same place. He's saying that these guys in their quest for immortality are going to kill us. And then, well, that's the oldest story in the book. It's choose life, and these guys are death. And then everything about us is life. We're team human. And so it's all about reestablishing humanity, reestablishing all the stuff that makes us human. It's rediscovery. It's I think we win hands down. Okay, so now what do you think of this, Spencer?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I know, and you'll maybe get it a little bit when you watch like In Bright Axiom, but one of the things that was really, really powerful, and it wasn't wrong, I think it was true, but one of the first things that happened, that got people involved. So basically the way that Jeff really crafted the idea around getting people invested emotionally in something, whether it was the Latitude Society or the principles that were underlining it. the whole, we can talk about the business model later, but the whole idea was essentially that you were special, you were chosen, you are the one that we need. You've been identified by somebody that you know, and you are the only one that can, maybe you are the only one of a group of people who can bring about change. And so this was done by kind of this pay it forward model. So what you would do is you'd get called to a cafe, and a friend would say, hey, I have a secret, or can you keep a secret? I want to invite you into something, but you can't tell anybody. You have to, keep it very, very
total discretion, right? Total discretion was
absolute discretion, yeah. Which, funny enough, the idea around absolute discretion has multiple meanings. It just, can you make a good decision? It doesn't necessarily mean secrecy, although for most people it could or did. Or it just means, absolutely owning the decisions that you make, and not backing down. But anyway, yeah, so you would be basically gifted an invitation into this society by somebody you already knew and somebody who knew you. And if they were identifying you and they knew you, they knew that you were special and important enough to be invited into this society. So it's kind of like that, I guess like Neo from the Matrix or Luke Skywalker. It's like, you are the chosen one, and we need you, and you're more important than you think. Sometimes maybe that's in, I don't know, in Joseph Campbell stuff, it's like, maybe that's a lineage thing. Your father was Zeus, and so you are Hercules, but you've been forgotten, and you need to like reclaim the greatness that is you, or whatever. So, I mean, the problem then becomes when you make somebody feel like they are very, very special and important, then a kind of entitlement, I guess, shows up, and a rightful entitlement. I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, but it's like, you can't give Luke Skywalker the lightsaber and then take it out of his hands and say, oh no, it doesn't actually belong to you. So once you give somebody that power, there's definitely a lot of responsibility that comes both for them and the person who gave that to them. So, I mean, how do you get somebody super involved and into something? I mean, there's a million ways, but also like, only a couple. And I don't have like just a clear one definitive answer to anything like that, but that's something that we kind of thought a fair amount about.
So, yeah, isn't the way to do it by an initiation and the degrees, like Freemasonry? So, you don't say to people, oh, you Luke Skywalker, or you are the chosen one. It's basically, that's a very old archetype. It's, Arthur and the stone, so,
right.
So they don't draw the sword from the stone, or they don't get Excalibur or anything like that. So they have to earn it. So the narrative is something like, when you were born, or you might, you can always implant a memory in people. You say, do you remember when you were a little kid and you had this amazing experience? And so says, that was the aliens. We came down and we basically altered you genetically. So now you are susceptible to basically this program. So we basically inoculate, or if you felt you're a little bit different throughout your life, that's part of the price you had to pay for being special with this genetic manipulation. And now we complete the genetic therapies to transform you into like a full human butterfly. So you say, oh, it's done by degrees, and then each thing unlocks this potential inside you.
Well, that sounds a little like Scientology.
It does, yes, but they did it for a reason, right? It works. It's an old formula.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I was able to read through a little bit of the document that you sent over, and I was pretty interested in kind of like, and we were talking about it earlier, or about to start talking about it, the idea of like the benevolent cult leader, and like how you create that and what that means, because
just a word of warning here, just so we don't have to do too much editing later. The code word for that guy in the document is faulty. Okay, so just use the word faulty. Okay, go carry on.
sure,
you know, like Basil Fawlty from Faulty Towers.
Oh, right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really interested in that. I don't know. Like, do you need to have? I don't know. Do you need to have a central like figure that people rally around? It goes back to like kind of having the. I don't know if you want me to use the word cult or not, but like the idea of a cult of personality versus kind of like culture, I guess, and letting things kind of grow on their own, and having like decentralized leadership.
You see, well, a couple of things. One of them is this is a left-wing project, right? So the left is continually plagued by this, you know, really analysis paralysis and decision paralysis, because they always think you have to have consensus. It's just a thing. It's just part of the left. And you say like, well, no, I mean, in these kind of situations, which are really kind of like wartime situations, you just have to suspend democracy and say, look, we've got to constitute ourselves like an army and have a general, just so we can compete with the other guys who are actually regimented. So I think that there needs to be a concession on that thing. So it's just temporarily, you need a commander-in-chief. So then the egregore builds around that. So everybody's in charge of building the egregore, but the way I see it is kind of like the Faulty or the cult leader is in this back and forth, they're in this dialogue, and it's really a dialectic, and the egregore emerges because basically the players in the game and the chief puppet master or cult leader, they're playing off each other. So the cult leader is not really directing them or controlling them, as really completing their desires. So they're reflecting their desires back to him, and then he basically tries a new bit of improv, and then, you know, does a bit of A/B testing on this way, that way, and then they say, yeah, we want more Andy Cow. So it's basically playing to the crowd. And then you get this psychological game that's kind of like a folie à deux in psychology, right? And they play off each other. I mean, it's straight out of, you know, Nuremberg, right? That's what was going on at Nuremberg, and that's what every demagogue does. But I think that's really what you have to do. There's a little element here of self-awareness. So the mere fact you say this is a cult, you say that this is what you kind of open that this is what is happening. And then that kind of inoculates it takes the danger out, so it doesn't turn into Nuremberg. Here's my insight. All the way down the line, I've had this insight, and I think it's a really important one, particularly with atheists against religion and stuff. And it's my take on religion these days. And that's that there's a placebo effect. So I read this paper about placebos. So for the longest time, doctors thought that placebos worked because they tricked people into believing such and such. Eventually somebody questions it, because placebos are so damned effective in pharmaceutical areas. So people started to see, why are placebos so damn effective? And one of the studies said, like, they told the people, look, it's just a placebo. It made no difference. The fact that the doctor gave it, it's incredible. They knew it was a trick, and it made no. And so when I realized that, I started to realize, hey, this is really powerful shit. You know, it's not like if you go against religion and stuff like the humanists and stuff, or Dawkins and the crowd, they're going against these religious people. And you say, no. And the religious people are resisting it. You say, no, you can have your cake and eat it. You can go to church, you can pray to Jesus and everything. But then the priest stands up on the stand and says, but we all know there's no God and this is bullshit. Anyway, praise be to the Lord. And you don't have to believe it. You can also agree that we atheists, and you carry on going to church. And then it's kind of safe. It's basically the placebo that you know is a placebo. Okay, there's a long story, but anyway, it comes down to the cult too. You say that it's a cult, but not a cult. You say that basically, you're quite open that that's the leaders playing off the crowd, and we're seeing where this is going. Everybody's in on the gag, and that's the safety. That's the safety net. That's the inoculation against the harmful stuff. That's my vision.
Sure. Although I would go even further and say that, with religion, because In Bright Axiom is very much sort of about like accidentally stumbling upon creating this sort of theology. And the idea was, this isn't real. You should know going in, this isn't real. And yet, exactly like you're saying, it still started having the same effect as like religion does. But I wouldn't discount the actual true side effect benefits of like religion, like you were saying. So good example. I mean, it could be something as simple as if you go to church every Sunday, maybe that's 1 hour where you're not waking up in the morning and doing something self-destructive. Maybe, I don't know, maybe substance abuse, or maybe just like you don't eat that sandwich. And so you're losing a little bit of weight by like having this goal, this thing that you have to do, or even just the idea of being around other people and physically, it's weird to say now, but like, sharing bacteria and spit, it increases your immune system. I don't know. So what the Latitude did was kind of really used a lot of that technology of religion, of ritual, congregation, and tradition. And those things, I think, are just incredibly powerful, even if the story was just, invented just a second ago. It's that idea of being together. And so that's kind of one of the things that I think is really important to do, is maybe like right off the bat, just establish what are our customs, what are our traditions of this organization. Do we take a sip of wine and do we walk down the aisle? Like, do we have the incense, and all those smells trigger something that I think is really powerful and
well, the thing is, you just raid a lot. You just raid everything. You basically culturally appropriate whatever's cool. You chuck in the mix, right?
Right.
You just a total plagiarist. And you see, I'm talking to this guy called Ramsey Jukes. Lionel Snell is his real name. He's a magician. He's quite well known in chaos magic circles, written books and stuff, and so he's a popular figure in the niche. Now, he did a video on how to start a cult, and I did one too, just the same time. So I talked to him on Saturday. Very fascinating discussion. But now, in his video about how to start a cult, he had this experience where he went to a magician's thing, and they asked him to do something really powerful for the audience, and he did two things. One of them was he did it like a Southern Baptist preacher, and he said, like, I want you to feel the chaos, brothers, and he did the feeling on the hands, and the whole room was complete skeptics, but they all got into it. And he said afterwards, people came and said that was the most powerful thing they've ever experienced, and it was a spoof. But he did the same thing as like a Southern Baptist preacher, and you can do, you can immediately don, the ochre robes and do the orange towel, and suddenly you're the guru with the beard from India, and you're the Indian mystic, and you can switch one to the other. I think it would be a riot, especially if everybody knew that you were doing it. You're just playing these roles.
Well, yeah. I mean, but then there's also a couple situations where even if it's a placebo and you don't tell people, the effect can probably be even more powerful. But then there's also some people who become very, very upset. So a friend of mine, Brian Carmel, made a documentary called Kumare, and great documentary. You should check it out. But it's basically the story of a friend of his named Vikram Gandhi, who Indian guy or Indian descent, and basically pretended to be a guru from India, and went to Arizona and put out these posts in newspapers saying free yoga lessons. And so people go, okay. He didn't know yoga at all, but people would show up and he'd start, putting out these platitudes, these spiritual platitudes. And all the people that came suddenly were like, oh my God, this has like changed me completely. And their lives really do start getting better, even though he's really just saying nonsense. He has no background in knowing any of this. It's just pure nonsense. And then finally at the end, I won't ruin it, but it's really powerful. Even you can give people complete nonsense, but the idea that they believe they're learning is powerful enough to enact like real change in their lives. So
I've seen it. It's very good. It actually made me think of a character in one of the young people's series that my family were watching, the Umbrella Academy. I think it was something like that, where there was a guy like that who was just total. Just decide. Everybody started to follow him as a guru. It was even in spite of himself, and people adored him. And I saw Kumari. It is absolutely a learning. Very interesting.
But hang on a minute here. Didn't you see the thing from Lionel Snell? Because I think that was the guy he was talking about. I'm not sure who it was.
That's what he said. He talked about it because he watched it on Netflix or something, and he it's in the first video that he made on cults. That's the example he took.
Yeah.
Well, I have to fill Spencer in now. So Spencer, the Lionel Snell I was talking about here, doing this thing with his experience. He said he was a fake guru, and so so the guy that you're talking about in the movie here. He called him up and he said, you can't fake being a guru. I know because I was a fake guru, and he talked to Langston and said that what he found in the end was that the people were really, when he came out and he said, look, I've just been having you on. This is just a big spoof. I'm just basically Sacha Baron Cohen of the cult leaders. They were furious because they said, because they were losing him. They said it meant so much to them what he had done. So they were furious that he was stopping. So he found that he was trapped into that role. Actually, I really would love it if you'd finish reading that document, because I kind of hinted that to Faulty. I said that, if you take this role on, you're not going to get out of it, because once you mount that tiger, people don't want you to let go. You have to carry on going. It's very easy to back out of this role. So whoever does it, and I'm pretty sure Faulty's tailor-made for this role, is I think has to go all the way through to the end, which is probably a grisly end for the cult leader.
Perhaps, yeah. I'm also there's also times and like little environments that you can potentially find yourself in where you've just found a group of very, vulnerable people who are begging for some kind of guidance in their life, or just were neglected. And a lot of times these people can be totally taken advantage of, with the case of like, the Manson family, people. These were people who would have followed a duck into a lake. But I also think, though, like, I'm reminded of Life of Brian, the scene where
absolutely
he gets up and he just starts saying, don't follow me, like I'm not a leader. And they're like, oh, the leader is so humble. And it's like there are these times where there are people who just are desperate to follow anything,
No, Forrest Gump. There was also in Forrest Gump, right? Everybody he was jogging around the.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's like, why are you doing it? There is no. I don't know. Just ask.
Why are you doing this? Is this do your own jogging? They went like, oh, what a brilliant leader! Do your own jogging. Hell, he's so wise. It's like his complete Life of Brian thing.
Completely. So I don't know. Sometimes those moments and those people are just kind of in the zeitgeist, but definitely there's a lot of people who I think everybody kind of wants to believe in some kind of higher thing. I mean, for me, I'm just kind of a sci-fi nut. So my hope and there's some people who are like, okay, hopefully in my lifetime Jesus comes back. We get the second coming of Jesus. My thing is like in my lifetime, I hope we actually officially make contact with aliens. Like they actually come and hang out. So a month ago they were going to release the Pentagon paper on the UFOs, and it's nice that they did that, but they did it in true Pentagon fashion where they don't really say anything. It's like there's some stuff floating around. It could be a balloon, could be a bird, we don't know. So I think it's really important that you give everybody something to look forward to, some end goal. And yeah, I don't know, with I guess the Institute, it was, bring down Octavio Coleman, bring down the cult leader, and then the world will return to some kind of stasis balance or something like that. But yeah, so, I mean, where are you?
So I have a. I'll go ahead.
Oh, no, after you.
Yes, so we have all of that in place. I don't want to share it with you now because it's too much of a reveal in the story. But we got a dynamite version of that. It's basically that there is a route to escape to a better world. I think that is part of a doomsday cult, is you have to offer a path to salvation for the chosen few. And so, the way I structured it was there are 12 gold tickets that, basically, and the aliens. So you get the aliens straight out. But you see, the premise is a good one to say, look, the aliens are not going to come down and rescue you because you've screwed up this planet so badly. You're kind of like the virus of this planet, and we're going to come down and rescue you like we're going to come down and rescue smallpox. It's like you're the smallpox of this planet. If we rescue anything, it'll be the planet, and we'll get rid of you bastards. But with the caveat that like you're a special kind of smallpox, so you can be redeemed, but you first have to prove that you are not just the destructive virus that kills us host. And so it's basically you can elevate yourself and reach the escape route, but only if you basically save yourself first, save your home planet first and prove that you are capable of being benign. Otherwise, humans are just going to infect the whole galaxy and just bring down all life forms if the aliens let us escape. When we're obviously so destructive, we're just basically going like a bushfire through the whole world. And so I think it makes a lot of sense because there's, in the zeitgeist today, everybody feels there's a time of change. Everybody thinks that we're in the transition to something. So you get, transsexuals, transhumans, transpersonal psychiatrists. Everybody's got some trans thing in it. Everybody's, it seems like we're ripe for change. Everybody knows that we can't carry on in this way. And what we're kind of competing for is the mode of the change. My feeling is, you shouldn't lose any sleep on it. You just basically get the birth done and have the change, and you trust human ingenuity to sort out what comes next. I have total faith in humans to sort it out later. Most people think, we have to engineer what the future is. Oh, no, sort that out. Humans are good at that. So we just need to basically do this birthing process and do the change. And so, yeah, and I think it resonates so well with the public now because everybody feels that. They can, if you say this is how the change happens and don't get into the details too much of where you end up afterwards, other than a whole new game.
Yeah. Well, I also think, and what I was going to say was just I'd love to maybe offline just kind of learn a little bit more about what it is you guys are planning and creating and what that narrative is and what that execution is. I'd be fascinated. But at the end of the day, I think another thing is fighting climate change and trying to do something about it is actually a very human-centric and kind of selfish endeavor in that I don't really have any doubt that the planet Earth will be able to bounce back and be okay. It just depends on how many human beings it has to kill and destroy to get to that point. There's obviously the idea that one day Earth can become Mars, but it's not really looking like Mars dried up because of human beings necessarily, although who knows. There's always that possibility for Earth, but I mean, I think the biggest reason is if you love human beings, then you need to help fight to keep them around and alive, because I don't know, temperatures go up just too much and we get
but to keep humans around, you have to keep human habitat around. The foundation of our existence is the ocean, really. Right. And so you got to at minimum have a healthy ocean, and if you don't have that, you've got no humans. So you got to start with the animals and the ecology first, and then you got to save them. You can't save them, you won't save the humans. But so my thinking on it is I don't think we're in a position where you often hear this. You hear with the Planet of the Humans and Michael Moore and that, and he said the same thing as you, that it's the planet's going to be fine. It's it's us that's in trouble. I don't think so. I think that what's likely to happen now is very, very dangerous. And the transhumanists, all the tech geeks, the billionaires, the weaponized philanthropists, all of these guys, I think where they're heading for, and very rapidly, is geoengineering. Now, the problem with geoengineering is not that it won't work. It's the problem is it will work. They will get the temperature down by 1 degree. We will get control of the weather. But you know what's going to happen after that is they're going to say, well, we've got control of the weather. Might as well party till we drop. Just burn every bit of fossil fuel. We can go up to 1,800 parts per million. And then how hubristic it is for us to control the weather. It's basically, we're going to fight over the thermostat. We're going to go from like having a global thermostat so we can, save the planet to, hey, we can actually enhance the planet. In fact, why not enhance America? We can set the global temperature so that America maximizes its crops and China goes into a desert. And they're going to do that. They're going to start fighting over this. You go from saving the planet to, hey, there's an advantage very quickly. And then at the end of that is we're going to drop the ball. And then during a nuclear war or something, we won't be able to do cloud seeding or solar radiation management. And during that time, the 1,800 parts per million is going to make us fry. So we're heading for disaster. And I think that they're going to try and control climate change, and I think they're going to be successful, and it'll be a disaster because we have no self-restraint, basically. So that's part of the narrative of an ARG, is to say that we're against the transhumanists, these guys doing tech solutions for psychological problems and stuff, and we say we have to rediscover our humanity, not try and put a technical band-aid on really what amounts to our psychological immaturity. So that's part of it. So team human means discovering what it means to be human, and then you naturally have your Octavian there, because Bill Gates, Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset, these guys are Octavian.
Right. Well, yeah, but I guess maybe the dark version of that is the same people who would be very anti-vaccination, just saying we're human beings. We don't need technology to solve problems for us. I have an immune system. I'm fine. I'm healthy. I don't need a vaccine. But I do think that sometimes there is uses of technology that, I don't know, are necessary, I guess. Yes, I don't know.
May I come in there? You see, why the vaccine came in, and I'm a doctor, I've got a background in medicine, and why the vaccine came in is because the health systems were overwhelmed.
Right.
Because they're already corrupt and they're already falling apart in most Western countries anyway. But when that came, it was about to collapse. So this vaccine was introduced only for that. And I mean, it's you can look at all the studies. That vaccine has been done in 10 months instead of 10 years with the normal trials on animals. It's been introduced just for economical and political reasons. I'm saying like you, yeah, it has saved some old people from dying alone in hospital. It has saved the hospitals from collapsing. It has probably saved the lives of fragile people, but the spreading of the indication of vaccination to young people and children is extremely controversial, and it's become a, so you're threading on a you have to see the premises of the technology. Why was that technology introduced? If we had stayed,
Yeah, well,
if the economy, if we were not thinking about the economy, if everybody stayed at home and was in total lockdown without any government saying to do it, and okay, the economy would collapse. That's so much better for the climate. Well, the virus wouldn't find any more vectors, and it would have died out, like all pandemics do if people stop traveling and moving around and going to supermarkets. So, it's not being anti-vax.
the technology.
Mm.
Yeah, the technology always turns out to be like a double-edged sword. So we wouldn't have this pandemic if it wasn't for planes, and planes kept on flying and stuff. It wouldn't have been a global pandemic if we had like sailing ships, because it wouldn't have been able to get around.
That's
so
true.
Because we have this modern infrastructure and all of this stuff, then it's kind of like you wouldn't have the vaccine debate if we didn't have modern industrial society and this huge infrastructure, global infrastructure and global trade. So it's like you got to at some stage ask, is it really doing anything for anybody? Is everybody, for a few, they're making out like bandits, but for the majority of people, and I mean, outside of America and stuff, if you go to Africa and India and that, they just want the pain to stop. They're under so much pressure. People like Vandana Shiva and stuff in India, and we really like our tech, and so it's easy for us, because we benefit from it, to say that it's all great. But like Vandana Shiva was saying, that if the global industrial system ended tomorrow, everybody in the developing world would be better off instantly, because they'd get their land back from the Coca-Cola factory that's taken all their water and all of that stuff. They would get instant relief. And so we are kind of riding high on, our own trip here, So yeah, I think that we need to backpedal. You've gone too far.
Sure. I mean, what would the effect of shutting down industrialization, and what would the effect might be great for people in the first world? What would the effect be on people in third world countries? Would it be better? Would it be worse?
No, that's what I mean. That's what I was saying. What Vandana Shiva was saying. She's an activist in India, so she was saying that the first world people would suffer, but the rest of the world, the vast majority of the world, would get instant relief. You see, I think Westerners are a bit confused on that point. They think, these poor people in the South, and we've got to give them electricity and medicine and stuff. And I said, no, it's the opposite. It's like if you pulled the plug on the grid in America and China, the rest of the world would get instant relief. And it's the opposite of what most privileged Westerners think.
We want to be able to go, we want to be able to go get our McDonald's and have it be available right away, or get our Amazon packages. So yeah, I think that's very true. That's the other thing too, is just like the amount of, there was this thing where, right during the beginning of the pandemic, when everybody was staying home, everybody was saying, "Oh, look, LA, look, it's so clear, like the sky is so blue all of a sudden." And for me personally, I didn't actually notice that. Maybe it's true. I didn't really notice it. But what I did notice was the insane amount of plastic crap that was coming in all of our food delivery now. The insane amount of just plastic-based masks being thrown to the wind, just floating out, and then by the beach, see them floating in the ocean, and then the amount of just constant Amazon planes and FedEx planes just having to send everything now because you can't go out and get it. So I personally kind of feel like staying home, at least early on, I just don't see how that was good for the environment with the amount of garbage that was just piling up in all our homes between packaging and the plastic forks and just I don't know. There were slightly less cars on the road for sure, but it still seems
it's a very mixed bag, because like that Amazon packaging that's made from, the boxes are made from virgin wood, so it was terrible deforestation and stuff. So if you go to like a website like Mongo Bay with the environmentalists, it was a disaster. But you see, here, me in Greece here, I saw a dramatic recovery in the ocean, because I'm diving almost every day and stuff, and swimming with the fishes, and so it's because effectively the tourists didn't come last year. The oceans here is severely overfished. I saw a dolphin a couple of weeks ago, but the dolphins are kind of less and less. You used to see them every day in the 70s, pods of them, 100 of them. Now, because the restaurants weren't open, the fishermen couldn't sell their fish, so they didn't go out. I saw the fish get bigger and more numerous and everything, and then they were, I went and got a spear gun, because they were starting to get big dinner plate fish around places which before had nothing. And so I saw dramatic recovery, and urchins and all this stuff. Now the tourists have come back in a big wave. That in a few weeks they've taken everything that grew back. So it's kind of heartrending.
Yeah,
but,
my brother is
bag.
actually in Greece right now. Yeah, vacationing. Yeah.
Oh, whereabouts?
He was just at the Acropolis. He's island hopping, so I'm not really sure at the moment where he is. Sarah Kinnico. Do you know where that is? I don't know. But anyway, I mean, just to get your point.
Yeah, isn't near Jamestown. I'm in the Ionian.
Do you know what I was referring to about staying at home? Just not staying at home with the idea that you had to get your fix of Amazon deliveries and food brought to you in takeaway things. It was another idea I had behind, is that it was to stop this pandemic. The only way was to get organized locally and with the community, and keep the small shops open and the small restaurants open, and that people stop traveling. And that would have not had the impact that you saw in a big city. I'm living in the country. Hugh is living on a boat. I live in a village where there's 7 people. And there's more animals and birds than people in the whole around the 7 miles around me. But in a city, it's a catastrophe. I agree with you. It's a catastrophe to shut down everything. It's true, but that's the story of cities, and that's what we want to approach to in our project. It's part of it. The industrial problem is a city. It's an urban problem. Why, the dependence on agriculture, the need to the energy problems. It's so the urban thing. But again, an ARG is going to be centered on an urban population, isn't it, Hugh?
Yeah, but the idea is to change people's mentality. So so that they think differently in something like a lockdown, because ideally the way they should have been thinking, say our grandparents would have thought, is they would have started, instead of just thinking, oh shit, now I have to order in pizza and make Bezos rich by getting stuff from Amazon, they would have started victory gardens. They would have started preparing. They would have started local things. They would have started basically localizing everything. So I think the government made a mistake, because they should have grounded planes and forced people to start improvising and localizing. I think we'd all be better off. But I'm a doomer. I think that we're heading for a big crisis and collapse. So I would like to educate people and try and get them to think differently, so that they're more resilient. It's a kind of prepping thing as well as kind of built into the project.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to learn more offline about, what you guys are planning and what you're doing, because it sounds fascinating, and I think your intentions are really great.
Well, we'll let you know how we go with faulty, but I would urge you to read the rest of the document, because one of the things that has in it is how to fund it. And I always thought funding was the biggest problem, and I think that's what you guys found as well in Bright Action or the Latitude Society. And so I think I've cracked the way of making the ARG self-funding, and I put the gist of it in that document. So yeah, I think that you would understand the funding part of it, but Faulty didn't. He'd kind of completely downplayed it. Funding's we got to GoFundMe or something. So have an auction or something. It's like, so I thought that was the major problem, and it's going to be a problem for activists in the future, is how to fund stuff, especially if the government decides they don't like this kind of thing.
Well,
so have a look at that document if you get a chance.
Yeah, I've been slammed, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, my only advice there, just based on the latitude, was if you're planning to ask your participants for money, do it up front. Don't do it down the line. They don't like that.
No, the idea is to fund it with a fake money, with kind of a Chuck E. Cheese model. Basically, you have a tokens that you win in the game kind of thing, and then redeemable later for like real gold and silver.
It's cool. I like it.
Yeah. So, okay. Well, thank you so much once again.
Thank you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and looking forward to checking out, reading through that doc when things slow down a little bit for me.
Sure.
And thank you for the link.
Okay, well,
thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it.
I'll let you know. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Okay, bye then. All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.